It's this uniquely modern frustration we all have. You're driving, you ask your phone a highly sarcastic question, expecting maybe a little sass in return, and instead, you just get a deadpan, literal web search for the punchline.
Oh, yeah, it completely misses the joke.
Right. It is the ultimate gap between our sci-fi expectations and our actual technological reality. Like, we expect this omniscient digital genius, and what we actually get is, a very eager but slightly confused filing clerk.
That is, I mean, it perfectly captures the tension we're dealing with today. We project human understanding onto something that operates on a completely different set of rules.
Exactly. And so, welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us today. Our mission is to cut through the overwhelming noise, the hype, and quite frankly, the fear surrounding artificial intelligence.
There's a lot of fear out there right now.
So much of it. We are pulling from a massive stack of research today, weaving together insights from CTO Magazine, some really cool deep cuts into Google's experimental AI labs, financial journals like the Credit and Financial Management Review, and even the historical origins of machine learning.
Yeah, we're really covering the whole spectrum.
We are. So whether you are prepping for a high-stakes board meeting on enterprise AI integration, or you're just trying to streamline your own daily workflow, or if you're just insanely curious about why Siri still does not understand your jokes, we're going to break down exactly what AI is.
And how it actually works under the hood.
Right. And where the real, unsexy, but incredibly powerful value is hiding.
I think that's the key, right? Before we can harness this technology to improve our workflows or our lives, we have to stop treating it like magic. Or worse, like some malevolent sci-fi villain.
Right, like Terminator or something.
Exactly. If we want to use this effectively, we have to understand the plumbing. And the most important takeaway from the CTO Magazine piece is, well, it's a bit of a reality check. There is absolutely no humanity in the AI-powered platforms we use today. Like, none.
Zero.
Zero. No matter how realistic a conversation with an AI feels, you are just interacting with data-powered algorithms. And it's vital that we differentiate the buzzwords we hear constantly. So you have automation, which is just software following a strict set of pre-programmed rules.
Like a macro on a spreadsheet.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah.
But then you have machine learning, or ML.
And the quick reference guide emphasizes that machine learning is where the system starts learning from data without being explicitly programmed for every single scenario.
Right. A great everyday example of machine learning is Netflix. When Netflix recommends a movie to you, it hasn't watched the movie and thought about the cinematography or the emotional arc of the characters.
It doesn't know it's a sad movie.
No, not at all. It is purely predicting a pattern. It looks at millions of users with viewing habits that are statistically similar to yours, and it calculates what you are mathematically most likely to click on next. It predicts patterns. It does not think.
Which is wild, because the current narrative makes it sound like this is a completely unprecedented, flawless new frontier that just fell out of the sky yesterday. But going through the historical source material, specifically the history of AI, we've actually been trying to do this for a long time.
Oh, decades.
Right. Back in the 1980s and 90s, the big hype was all about these things called expert systems. Companies poured massive amounts of money into them, but they ultimately failed because they were essentially just giant, brittle towers of if-then statements.
If this happens, then do that.
Exactly. But the real world is messy. It's unpredictable. Those early systems, they couldn't handle uncertain reasoning, and crucially, they couldn't adapt or learn when confronted with new information.
And that brittleness is the exact reason the industry had to shift toward neural networks and deep learning. But this is where we have to be really careful with our metaphors. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, and people often describe it as being inspired by the human brain.
Which is a terrible metaphor, honestly.
It really is, because it gives the false impression that it's actually thinking. A much better way to visualize deep learning is to imagine data passing through thousands of tiny interconnected filters or layers.
Like a giant sieve.
Yeah, exactly. Each filter analyzes a specific piece of the data and casts a mathematical vote on what the outcome should be. And as the model trains, it adjusts the weight of those votes until it consistently gets the right answer. It is a massive, high-speed probability engine, not a brain.
Not a brain. And that underlying architecture is what leads us to generative AI, which is what powers tools like ChatGPT.
Exactly. It uses those statistical models to generate new text or images or audio based entirely on the patterns it mapped during its training.
So if you're listening to this and you are sitting there worried that ChatGPT is going to, take your job next week,
yeah,
the fundamental reality is that AI is just a super fast pattern matcher. It is not an oracle. Understanding that limitation really changes your entire approach to the technology.
It really does. Once you stop expecting a human intellect, you start seeing the tool for what it actually is.
But, okay, let me play devil's advocate here.
Hmm.
If it is just a probability engine that's parsing syntax without understanding meaning, how is it capable of having a seemingly fluid, natural conversation with us? Like, let's look at the most ubiquitous example, the one sitting right in our pockets right now, Siri.
Right, Siri. This is where we get into the nuts and bolts of natural language processing, or NLP, and speech recognition. The Skywall software source breaks down this pipeline beautifully. When you say, "Hey Siri, you are triggering the speech recognition software,"
Right.
its only job is to take the physical audio waves of your voice and convert them into text strings. But humans are messy.
Hmm.
We have different accents, different timbres, different paces. We mumble constantly. So Apple uses massive data sets of varying human voices to train this model so it can accurately transcribe those audio waves into written words.
Okay, but I'm guessing my phone's processor isn't actually robust enough to decipher all the weird colloquial ways I might ask for a reminder. It has to outsource that brain power, right?
Yeah, unless you are entirely offline, that text string is immediately sent to Apple's servers, which are vastly more powerful than your device. And there, it runs through natural language processing algorithms to determine intent.
Intent. Okay.
Think about how many ways a human can ask a really simple question. You could say, remind me about the meeting at 11, or give me a heads up about my 11 a.m., or don't let me forget the 11 o'clock.
Right. Yeah.
The NLP algorithm has to parse all those variations, filter out the conversational fluff, and map them to a single actionable intent, which is set a reminder for 11 a.m. Once it mathematically calculates that intent, it executes the command, generates a text response, and sends it back to your phone, which then converts it back into synthesized speech.
Okay, and the Skywell source notes that thanks to deep learning, the mistake rate for that speech recognition part is now below 10%, which is wild.
It's incredible progress.
But this still leaves a massive gap for me. If Siri's deep learning is so incredibly advanced and it is backed by Apple server farms, why does it still fail so spectacularly to grasp sarcasm or wit or just basic human context? Like, the source mentions HAL 9000 from the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Oh, a classic example.
Right. HAL could converse flawlessly, but still gave a literal robotic answer when asked the meaning of life. And Siri feels the exact same way. It can fetch data, but it seems to completely lack automated reasoning or, true information retrieval.
You are hitting on the critical difference between fluency and comprehension.
Okay.
Siri is incredibly fluent. It can parse the syntax of your sentence flawlessly to find the actionable command. But it doesn't comprehend the meaning behind the words. It doesn't know what a meeting actually is.
It doesn't feel the social anxiety of being late to one.
Exactly. It just knows that the word meeting mathematically clusters near the word reminder. Conflating fluency with comprehension is one of the absolute biggest mistakes we make with modern AI.
So if an AI is incredibly fluent, but entirely lacks comprehension, what happens when it encounters a phrase or a concept? It is statistically memorized, but logically contradicts itself.
That leads to one of the most critical vulnerabilities in modern AI. It's a concept known as the stochastic parrot.
The stochastic parrot?
Yes. The term was coined by AI researchers and highlighted in the MoveWorks article. A stochastic parrot is an AI system that uses statistics, that's the stochastic part, to convincingly generate human-like text, but it possesses absolutely zero semantic understanding of what it's saying.
It's literally parroting us.
It is. The article gives a great hypothetical example using an AI named Polly. So let's say you train Polly on millions of social media posts. Because of the statistical proximity of words in its training data, Polly easily learns to generate the phrase, Paris is the capital of France.
Makes sense.
It mathematically maps that Paris, capital, and France cluster together really frequently.
But it doesn't actually know geography. It has no spatial awareness of a map.
Exactly. So if you then ask Polly a question that requires actual deduction, like France is the country where what city is the capital, Polly might struggle or output total nonsense if that exact sentence structure wasn't prevalent in its training data.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't deduce facts, it just predicts the next most likely word in a sequence. It is generating probabilistic word salads.
Word salad. To solidify this for you listening, imagine an actor who memorizes a script in a foreign language flawlessly. They have nailed the pronunciation, the cadence, the emotional inflection.
To a native speaker in the audience, they sound perfectly fluent.
Right. But if you were to walk up to that actor backstage and ask them for directions to the bathroom off script, They would just stare at you blankly. They don't know the language. They only know the pattern of sounds they were trained on.
That is a perfect analogy for how these models operate. And this is where the business and societal risks become very, very real. If you deploy a stochastic parrot without strict safeguards, it leads directly to AI hallucinations.
Right, where it just makes stuff up.
The model will confidently invent fake facts, cite non-existent legal cases, or generate toxic text simply because the words sound statistically plausible together.
And it doesn't know any better. Like, the Wikipedia source details how AI voice cloning tools like the 15.ai project have been used to create deepfakes. And now, just to be clear, we are simply reporting on the technology landscape here. We aren't taking sides, but the sources note instances of people creating incredibly realistic audio deepfakes of figures like Biden, Trump, and Obama arguing over video games.
Right. It started as an internet meme.
It did, but the underlying technology shows how easily a fluent statistical parrot can generate a totally synthetic, convincing, but entirely false reality.
It is a profound risk. A system that can generate endless amounts of highly fluent, completely unverified text or audio can effortlessly scale misinformation if it's left unchecked.
Which brings up a glaring question. If these models are fundamentally just statistical parrots that don't actually understand anything they are saying, why on earth are Fortune 500 companies and tech giants investing billions of dollars into them?
Because when you constrain the parrot, when you stop asking it to be an omniscient god of the open internet and instead feed it clean, highly specific data and give it a really narrow task, it becomes a superpower.
A superpower. Okay, let's talk about that. The XDA article makes a brilliant point regarding Google Labs. The most useful AI tools right now aren't the generic chatbots like Gemini or ChatGPT that everyone is constantly arguing about online.
No, not at all.
The real magic is happening in these specialized, constrained tools. Like the article highlights a tool called Notebook LM, which completely changes the paradigm.
Notebook LM flips the entire script on how we interact with generative AI. Instead of the AI pulling answers from the murky, hallucination-prone wider web, it only uses sources that you explicitly upload.
That's a huge difference.
It is. You give it your PDFs, your personal notes, your company's meeting transcripts. It becomes an expert solely on your provided data. This virtually eliminates the stochastic parrot hallucination issue because you have drawn a rigid fence around what it is mathematically allowed to pull from.
Right, you've constrained the parrot, and it even has this feature called audio overviews, where it takes your dry technical documents and turns them into a conversational, podcast-style audio track between two AI hosts explaining the material back to you.
Yeah, it's incredible for processing dense information.
And Google Labs has other highly constrained tools too,
Yeah.
like an experiment called Learn Your Way.
Right. Learn Your Way adapts static learning materials to your specific reading level and your personal interests. So if you upload a dense academic PDF on data structures and you tell the AI you are a high schooler who loves basketball, it will dynamically rewrite the textbook, explaining complex data structures using basketball analogies.
That is so cool. There are also these hyper-focused tools like little language lessons, things like WordCam, where you point your phone at a physical object and it labels it in the language you were learning. Or SlangHang, which simulates real-world colloquial conversations rather than, stiff textbook dialogue.
Exactly. These are highly constrained, highly functional tools designed to do one specific thing flawlessly.
So that concept of constraint is exactly what bridges the gap between personal productivity and the corporate level. If we look at the abstracts from the Credit and Financial Management Review, AI is absolutely revolutionizing enterprise finance.
But it is doing it through constraint and clean data, not through flashy, open-ended chatbots.
Right. The journals point specifically to processes like order-to-cash or O2C. It is transforming commercial debt collection and cash flow forecasting. But how does it actually do that better than a human analyst?
Well, it comes back to high-speed pattern matching. A human credit analyst might look at a client paying an invoice 30 days late and just chalk it up to a typical administrative delay.
Oh, they're just slow this month.
Exactly. The AI model, however, looks at that same late payment, instantly cross-references it with thousands of other suppliers in that specific market sector, processes subtle shifts in payment histories over the last 5 years, and identifies a macro trend of liquidity issues.
Wow.
It flags a severe credit risk before the human analyst even finishes opening their spreadsheet.
But the journals emphasize a massive golden rule for this to work. They call it clean data, better credit.
This connects right back to the danger of the parrot. If an enterprise feeds its machine learning model garbage like duplicate records, outdated payment terms, or siloed departmental data, the AI will confidently make terrible credit decisions based on those flawed patterns.
Because it's still just matching pattern.
Exactly. AI in finance only works if the credit and financial teams act as strict data stewards.
The journal notes that poor data quality directly leads to a higher DSO days sales outstanding, which is essentially a metric of how long it takes a company to actually get cash in the bank after a sale. So if your AI is hallucinating or miscalculating risk because your proprietary data is messy, your cash flow tanks.
It's a direct financial hit.
Yeah. So whether you are a student trying to summarize reading materials or a multinational corporation trying to manage supply chain credit, the core principle remains exactly the same. You have to treat AI as a targeted, constrained tool to process pristine data.
That constraint is the defining difference between being constantly frustrated by AI's limitations and actually being empowered by its capabilities.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started by dismantling the sci-fi illusion. AI is undeniably a transformative tool, but at its core, it is a highly advanced pattern-matching algorithm casting mathematical votes.
It is not human, and it does not think.
No. We looked under the hood of Siri to see how natural language processing maps our messy human intent into actionable commands while also realizing that a system's fluency does not equal its intelligence.
And we stared into the void of the stochastic parrot, recognizing the profound dangers of probabilistic word salads and deepfakes when these systems operate unchecked.
Scary stuff.
But we also found where the true value lies, which is in constraining the AI. Whether you are uploading your own trusted sources to Notebook LM or ensuring your enterprise finance team maintains pristine ledger data, applying strict boundaries is the key to unlocking the technology's superpower.
It is entirely about respecting the limitations of the tool.
On that note, I want to leave everyone with a thought drawn from the Wikipedia source we reviewed today. It quotes an open letter signed by industry leaders and researchers regarding the future development of AI.
Okay.
It states, "Powerful AI systems should be developed only once we are confident that their effects will be positive and their risks will be manageable."
That is a heavy, necessary reminder, and I want to build on that with a final, provocative question for you to ponder on your own.
Let's hear it.
We know that current AI models have achieved this impressive human-sounding fluency by training on massive amounts of data generated by actual people across the internet, right?
Right.
But as the web rapidly fills up with articles, social media posts, and images generated by ChatGPT and other models, future AI systems will inevitably start training on the output of other AI models.
Oh, wow.
So if AI is fundamentally just a stochastic parrot predicting the next most likely word, what happens to our digital world when the parrots start exclusively mimicking other parrots?
It creates a fascinating and slightly terrifying statistical feedback loop.
It really does. Something to mull over as you navigate the web this week. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I highly encourage you to go try out some of the specific constrained tools we mentioned today, like Notebook LM, and see the power of fenced-in AI for yourself. Stay curious, and the next time you tell Siri a joke and it offers you a literal web search, just remember, the poor digital filing clerk is just doing the very best it can with the mathematical patterns it's got.